what's up? Sharif from Moors in America. Just here to let you know you about to watch a classic video with plenty of Moorish science in it. Enjoy. Subscribe to the page. Subscribe to the YouTube, Moors in America. We're on Twitter too, Moors in America, Facebook. Also got a Facebook group with the same name. And of course the website. Make sure you bookmark that website, moorsinamerica.com. Share with your family and friends. And enjoy the video. Share, hit like, and that's it. Peace.
I'm not gonna read this whole entire book, but I'm gonna read part of it and go over some of this with you guys, just so we can build on this, because I think this is pretty cool and will open up the eyes for a lot of people. Okay, so apologize for technical difficulties. Okay, so you see structure of the MSTA, right? Written by Supreme Grand Sheik D Belial, grandson of Emiliel, the first Supreme Grand Sheik appointed by the Prophet. Alright? Restoration of the Nation. And this was published in, it looks like 2011. Okay, so for what purposes was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? Within this demonstration, we'll be delving into what was transformed before and during the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. We'll be addressing and illustrating how the Prophet Noble Drew Ali established the Moorish Science Temple of America as a nation state and expounding upon the structure of this free national government while shedding light on the truth of this divine and national movement. So this is cool because it puts everything in the proper perspective, because it's like, what, when you look at what was going on in that time frame and on the world front, like internationally, then you can understand better, you know, what the Prophet meant, why he moved the way he did, and how it'll help you know how we should move, or how you should move now. And when I say that, I say, okay, if you look at this, like, I believe the Prophet was born in the late 1880s. So in 1832, Henry Berry, state delegate of Virginia, said, and this is really messed up, this is jacked up, "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light might enter the Negro's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would be on a level with the beast of the field, and we would be safe. I am not certain that we would not do it if we could find out the process, and that on the plea of necessity." So, state official Henry Berry's appeal to Virginia House of Delegates in 1832, man, you know, he's a lawmaker standing up here talking about how they have basically, as far as they know, used everything they could to close every avenue by which light might enter the Negro's line. They could extinguish the capacity to see the light. They would feel safe. And we'd be on the level with beast, you know? Now, they also have a book that's called The Negro Made in the Image of God or a Beast. And this book is held in most of the law libraries in the U.S. And it's important because it makes the case pretty much for why the Negro, the black, the colored is not connected to the human of family, to the family of humanity, right? It makes the case legally, and it's used for case law. It's actually used, you know, over several instances, like to base how the Negro is to be treated, you know, from a legal standpoint. And when you see this and you put it with things like this, you see, okay, well, they've done a lot of work to make sure that we don't know something. What is the light? You know, what is this light that they have to make sure it doesn't enter our mind, right? So that's really important. And okay, the next page, it says the European conceived a plan to reduce our people to the level of the beast of the field, to the degree of an animal. Without the knowledge of self, shackles were placed upon their minds. Our people lost the ability to think for themselves. They lost the ability to reason and understand their condition, which is why, like, when you're getting gunned down and no one is getting punished for these crimes, these assassinations, they're still marching. It's still easy to galvanize the people to go and march and do things with no even real nothing really on the table, nothing even proactive to be changed. Like, they're not marching and demanding some law to be made to protect them or anything. It's just things to, to divert their energy so that they can have news cameras there capturing all the Negroes acting unruly and show it to people, scare them, make them feel the need to amp up, security and stuff to keep us stomped down. So they do these things, and it's because the Negro lacks the light, whatever the light is, right? Not only were our people reduced to the level of animals, but they were domesticated as well. Domesticated animals cannot fend for themselves. They are subservient to a master and under their control. This control has been implemented through fear, programming, and manipulation. It truly took a form of divine intervention to lead our people out of this condition, a condition of social servitude, mental slavery, exploitation, and self-doubt, right? Then we have a quote from Psalms 83, 2-5. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. And what's that word tumult mean? Let's see, noun. A loud, confused noise, especially one caused by a large mass of people. 2, confusion or disorder. Okay, so we're going to go with confusion or disorder. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may no more be in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Why would the European state? We would be safe. What was going on at this time and in this hemisphere and around the world? They're so concerned about us not even being able to find the light, right? So what was going on? Okay. Sheikh Abu Alpha Muhammad Sharif bin Farid said on page 4, and this is in the book, which I've actually checked out before, the Islamic Slave Revolts of Bahia, Brazil. Used to live in Bahia, Brazil. So in this book on page 4, he says, in fact, because the African Muslims revolt against slavery, and it began as far back in mainland America as 1511, when Muhammad Sanbu led a 2-month insurrection in league with other Fulbe and African Muslims in Baton Rouge, indicates that the real American Revolution did not begin in 1776 when Anglo-Americans decided they had had enough of their English overlords, but the real American Revolution began and continued from 1511 with Muhammad Sanbu. Because it's like, how are you going to have a revolution and after that people are enslaved, and people are being tortured? It persisted in 1812 when Muhammad Bilali and his comrades braved military assistance to the Anglo-Americans against the British on the Sea Islands off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. But is that like where the Gullah people live? In the mid-17th century, the impact upon the thinking and lives of African-American revolutionaries such as Denmark Vesey, who became Muslim at the hands of the enslaved Fulbe Muslims, Umar bin Said, David Walker, who also became Muslim at the hands of the enslaved Fulbe Muslim, Abdurrahman ibn Ibrahim Sori, and Frederick Douglass, who was a direct descendant of the above mentioned enslaved Fulbe Muslim Muhammad Bilali. So Frederick Douglass was a direct descendant of Muhammad Bilali, who helped the British fight off the Anglo-Americans fight the British off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. It persisted throughout the Great Seminole Wars, where African Muslims, in confederation with the Seminole Nation, fought against Anglo-American control in the Florida Everglades. Finally, in 1864, when Muhammad Nicholas Said led the Northern Union African Corps into the southern states in their victory against Anglo-American slavery. It is in this light that African Muslim revolts in Bahia, Brazil, from 1807 until 1835 must be understood and considered. So while this guy is saying in 1832 that we need to extinguish the light and do everything in our power to do this, these revolts were occurring, with Muslims, African Muslims, or whatever you want to say. Muslims here in the Americas were fighting, okay? And they were fighting in slavery. They're fighting wars. So this is not how they teach things in history. They definitely don't tell you that Frederick Douglass was a direct descendant of Muhammad Bilali, who fought against the British off the coast of Georgia. And they don't tell you any of this stuff, right? And they definitely don't tell you that Denmark Vesey became Muslim. Might not even tell you about him at all, or David Walker, right? And then they in Bahia, they don't teach them about this in school, about the Islamic slave revolts. Most of the people in Bahia are dark-skinned, okay? And 90% of the people there are what you would call of African descent, okay? And that's in Brazil. It's a state. Okay, here we go. The Fulbe or Fulani Moors. The Fulbe are a tribe of Moors in West Africa who founded Volta de Jalan as a theocratic monarchy. Probably pronouncing that wrong, right? I guess it's in modern-day Guinea. They see Allah as being the sovereign power and rule themselves by religious law. The importance of historical consciousness and historical content so that you know what's going on at that time. So, this is all going on, in the 1800s. The Holy Prophet stated in Key 85, name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774. Answer: Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian. This is a big deal. They named us, You have to determine yourself. Sheikh Muhammad Sharif states on page 6, resistance, revolt, and eventual social transformation is born out of an oppressed people's awareness of themselves and the knowledge that their collective souls are under attack by their oppressors. To the degree that this cultural cohesiveness persists determines the degree to which the oppressed group will go in order to assure its survival. It is knowledge of one's culture, religion, social status that germinates the desire for resistance in the face of cultural aggression. However, when the historical conscience and culture of an oppressed group has been erased and destroyed, it determines the manner in which they will resist or if they will opt for resistance at all. Okay? So, saying resistance is key. The Moorish Science Temple of America, founded by our holy and divine prophet Noble Drew Ali, stated in our Quran that we as a clean and pure nation descended from the inhabitants of Africa do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale nations of Europe. In essence, Allah, through his prophet, saw fit to establish a means for us to resist oppression, to resist domination, and to resist a mental inferiority complex. Not only is the Moorish Science Temple of America self-government, it represents the ultimate resistance movement covenanted by our Father God, Allah. John the Baptist, the modern-day Marcus Garvey, spoke on the confusion used by the European nations. right? And one thing that when Noble Drew Ali spoke of Africa, okay, you actually have the continent in modern day that they call Africa, but you also, especially when you look in chapter 47, when he's talking about our history and who we are, where we come from, almost the entire planet was Africa, especially the land masses. He's saying that the ancient name for Africa was a Mexim, but then when he describes the dominions in our dominion, he said it reaches all the way to North, South, and Central America. So even this America was a part of a Mexim, right? So all of this was Africa. And so it doesn't matter if your family's been here for millions of years, or if you came over here when we were given dominion or given permission to settle here from the pharaohs of Egypt. It doesn't matter. Or if your family came over here more recently. We're all African if you want to go off of that. Okay? So, in this, I'm not really going to read all throughout this, but it's just showing like a speech from Marcus Garvey from 1924. And one of the speakers and Marcus Garvey, they're going on about the French and the British policy, the American policy towards the Negro, and just showing the underhanded things that they do to pretty much try to keep us confused, to keep us from knowing our roots, and to subjugate and dominate us, right? And that's like a huge part of their foreign policy and of everything that they do regarding business and everything that they do in the world, right? And he's pretty much explaining how they act so that we understand the position that we're now in. Okay? And a lot of this stuff is still in effect. So we'll go on to the next page. Let's look at an example of French policy. In the book Works of Sheikh Ibrahim Fall, The Great Murid Gateway to the Murids, Men and Women, page 1, it states, Senegal is located in the most westerly point in Africa. For a very long time it had been contested by the Dutch, Portuguese, the British, and finally the French. It's one reason why Senegal, like a lot of Senegalese, speak tons of languages. In the 19th century, the imperialist greed of Europe dictated a policy of conquest which led to colonization. This expansionist policy would face a fierce resistance from the local aristocracy. In 1891, the resistance ended up as a failure, and the French's next step was to assimilate the masses to their Western values. It continues, having dismantled the local authority, so they took out the local people or got them to go along with it. They started a fight with fury against the Muslim leaders through banishment, deportation, or merely the suppression of their lives to destroy religious authority. See? So they go after that next. If they succeeded, it would be a total handover of the country. To continue, another good reference is this John Blasingham's book, The Slave Community. It illustrates the Americanization of the African, the process that the European nations took to give the Asiatics of the Americas the mind state of the European, which our prophet calls mental slavery. So within this introduction, we've pointed out to you what was going on within the world, the global dominance of our people, and how the European went about confusing our people to place them into a mind state of inferiority and racial and cultural amnesia. So when you see like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and all these other different Christian groups, coming around as missionaries or, anything, even if it looks like they're doing stuff in goodwills, they do actually have to do some good things like charity and stuff so that they can be seen as helpful people and put their guard down. And this is one of the ways they get in and creep into the mindset, change things, especially when they get people to convert to their religion, things that were created for them, not for us, right? So this is a part of hiding the light, right? Getting you to buy into their way of things instead of your own. So what was the light that the European attempted to hide from us? They attempted to hide the importance of nationality, national identity, culture, and the religion of Islam. During the convention of the UNIA, which was Marcus Garvey's organization in 1924, it stated that the only solution of the problem facing the race in America was the building up of a nation in Africa, which would be in a position to protect the interests of Negroes everywhere, right? And that's why Marcus Garvey was really big about going back to Africa. Or going to Africa. Setting up a colony there. Okay, timeline during the Prophet. So the Prophet was born in the late 1800s, right? 1913, May, he founded the Canaanite Temple in Newark, New Jersey, right? And I know that he wound up leaving New Jersey because his teachings, what he was doing, came under attack because there was like a foreign Arab who came and who was trying to move what he had started towards Orthodox Islam, and he's stressing the importance of learning Arabic and trying to attack the Prophet's teachings way back then. And you know what? People are so lost, they probably rather listen to like a foreigner or somebody who's white or nearly white, you know, than they would someone who looks like them. So, in August of 1914, the beginning of the destruction of the Ottoman Empire. This was one of the last Moorish or Islamic strongholds, right? And that was like in Turkey, in that area. Sharif Hussein becomes British ally, 1916. Same year, Moorish Divine National Movement was founded. So there's a ton of stuff going on worldwide that's actually connected to this stuff, right? A lot of people don't know that, like in Toledo, Ohio, a prince, I'm trying to think, a prince who was, I believe, he was the son of the king from Saudi Arabia at the time, came to Toledo, lived there for a while, and was helping to increase the membership for the Moorish Science Temple of America. So he was actually out recruiting people. And he was in the newspapers. I guess he had gotten in trouble with the law, maybe for a gun charge or something like that. But anyway, okay, so the Moorish Divine National Movement founded in 1916. Same year, Arab Revolt. Saud becomes British military ally. So at this time, these different nobility in the Middle East are starting to sell out and starting to make alliances with the British and with different European powers. And a lot of people don't realize, like, Europe hasn't been in power for long at all. You know, all of these things were happening. These were key alliances that they needed to make even to be in the position they're in today, even though they're on their way out. So all of this stuff is just showing like how different people are coming into power. Or aligning with the British. The Caliphate movement was founded in India, and then 1925 the movement was organized as the Moorish Temple of Science. And then next year, Sultan Saud takes control of Mecca, and this is the same one who would become a British military ally. Mecca, Medina, and then he formed Saudi Arabia by 1932, right? And we're not gonna play any videos or anything like that. So Sheikh Hussein states that World War I was started as a precursor to destabilize the Islamic world, to remove what is known as the Caliphate, a term that means central authority and religious rule. So why did they want to end religious rule? This is how they keep the light out. This is how they destroy a people. What needs to be understood is that religious wrong rule is prescribed by Muslims, by Allah and His Prophet, peace be upon him, and the powers that be that sought to destroy it. The Ottoman Empire represented the head at that time, and as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaches us, this is the region where Satan's head was taken and where Satan, was bound in part. Just as the British and French found co-conspirators within the Islamic world to assist them in destroying the Caliphate, the same similarities can be found within the Moorish Science Temple of America. Okay? Sharif Hussein, a custodian of the holy places of Islam, betrayed Allah and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and formed alliances with the Christians and the Jews to do away with the Caliphate, and took on the title and position King of the Arabs for 7 million sterling pounds. Infiltrators and agents have also invaded this divine and national movement in their attempt to destroy our ability to govern ourselves by attempting to overthrow its leadership and removing our holy prophet's intentions. Right? So things like this were going on all over the world. Britain and France succeeded in the pursuit of obtaining Sharif Hussein. They now needed to find an ally within the region of the holy places of Islam. The custodian was on board. They now needed a military ally. Abdulaziz Ibn Saud accepted. This was before he became wealthy from oil, so the oil wasn't always over there in the Middle East. Like now, you think of them Arab money and stuff. Wasn't always like that. It used to just be the desert. The oil had not yet been discovered in that region. He too betrayed Allah and his prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in forming alliances with the Christians and Jews. And ones who didn't got taken out. The old president in Egypt was like that, and he was a problem for them. He was a lot like Gaddafi. They took him out too. I think he was one of Gaddafi's mentors or heroes. So, Muammar Gaddafi. Mustafa Kemal, a tool for the British, came into power in Turkey and assisted in destroying the remnants of the Ottoman Empire. Not only did he do that, but as a 32-degree Mason and homosexual, he played a significant and primary role in taking the fez from the Moors as our national and religious headdress and gave it to the Masons, specifically the Shriners. Also, many of the states that supported the Ottoman Empire turned their backs on the newly formed republic that was created by the British and Zionist movement. In a similar instance, after our holy and divine prophet changed form, passed away, those who worked against the rightfully appointed Supreme Grand Sheik were successful in obliterating the oneness of the movement. Those who left attempted to overthrow the Supreme Grand Sheik, who was ill, right? And this is who the prophet appointed to take over when the time was right, and when he made the transition, Emil took over like he was set up to do. And there were other people who wanted to be in control, or maybe they made alliances with others, like for example, you have J. Edgar Hoover, who wrote in the whole was it COINTELPRO? One of the objectives of COINTELPRO was to prevent the rise of a black messiah. So he had his hands in every group. They're playing both sides of the fence. They got people who are actively working against it, and then they got people on the inside trying to bring it down. So they had people. He had to have reached out to different leaders and stuff in the Moorish Science Temple, and it helped when Noble Drew Ali died, because you had all this disarray caused, and people in there went off starting their own temples, trying to subvert what they were doing. So many of the temples within the grand body turned their backs on the prophet's choice, which was Emil, and left this theocratic monarchy and chose to govern themselves by Christian ideals. The Moorish Science Temple of America was now only a shadow of what it once was. Okay? Being that the Muslims in India, while this was going on in America with the Moorish science, with the Moorish Divine and National Movement, Muslims in India established the Caliphate movement. So while we established the Moorish Divine and National Movement in the 1920s, in India, the Muslims over there established the Caliphate movement to remove British colonialism and establish Islamic rule for the Muslims. So you always hear that Gandhi starved himself, and that's how Britain just magically got up and left. No, You had a lot of things going on, and one of the things is the same thing that was going over here. We had the Moorish Divine and National Movement. They had the Caliphate movement to remove British colonialism and establish Islamic rule for the Muslims. We in the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America say that the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali established the same here in the Americas. The Moorish Divine and National Movement, founded by the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, was established to remove European colonialism and to re-establish Islamic rule for the Moors here in the Americas. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish Divine and National Movement. And that's from the Voice of the Prophet by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So while this is going on in India, the same type of thing was going on right here with us. And of course, you don't even know. Most of us don't even know. They're not going to teach this in school, right? And so this is real and official. And it's actually the only way to go about doing it. Okay? So if you look at all this in that light, I mean, you see what was going on in the world at the time. I mean, just like the Prophet Noble Drew Ali unleashing the flag here, like 1927. And at that time in Marrakesh, or present day Morocco, they were not flying that flag. They had a flag that was a variation. It didn't look anything like that, where it had, like, I think some of the colors from the French flag, because they were under French rule. And it was like basically like two flags in one. But even the 2 or 3 flags they had before that did not look like the flag that we have and the flag that they now fly today. They didn't debut that flag until the 1950s with the red flag with the green 5-pointed star. Okay? So we actually had that over here first. So in 1926, Moorish Temple of Science was incorporated. Then a year later, name is changed or adopted into the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. And then that same year, a foreign sheikh, Sati Majid, attempts to take Noble Drew Ali to court over the Quran of the MSTA version of Islam and its prophethood. And it's like he came to us. The Quran that we have is for us. Our version of Islam is very tolerant. And I mean, you would think in Islam it should be tolerant, period. But what we practice, what we do, is getting closer to the source, realizing that God is within. And so you had a foreigner trying to come and take him to court over that. Prophet Noble Drew Ali actually went to Havana, Cuba to represent the Moors as the head of nation state at the 6th Pan American Conference, 1928. So he's in Cuba, it looks like for almost a month, right? Then, that same year, legally changed the name to Moorish Science Temple of America, and the corporate status the next year is changed to religious, established home rule, authority, and self-government. Okay. So after looking at this, shedding light on what was transpiring before and during the time of our Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we illustrated why Allah saw fit to send us our divine and holy prophet, and how he guided him in establishing the Moorish Science Temple of America for our earthly and divine salvation. So for all the people outside the temple that attempt to say that the Moorish Science Temple of America is not a nation state, and saying that the officers thereof do not have the ability to nationalize our members, let's look at how Allah, through his prophet, made that so during his visit in Havana, Cuba during the Pan American Conference and what is now known as the Bustamante Codes. How can a religious society be a nation state? Let's see. Okay, I'm actually not going to read all of this stuff, right? Let me see if I can paraphrase it. I'm not going to paraphrase this. but we'll keep it moving and you'll understand in a second. Okay. All right. These are the requisites for a state according to international law. Okay? And we have 5 of them. So, all right. A state or person of international law should, according to existing practice, possess the following qualifications. There must be a people, according to Riviere Law Book. It must be sufficient in numbers to maintain and perpetuate itself. This requirement could not, he declares, be met by a casual gathering of individuals, by some chance group of bandits or society of pirates. So it has to be legit, a legit body of people who, are sufficient in numbers, right, and can perpetuate themselves. So back in 1928, there was already over 100,000 members in just 3 years, 36 temples throughout this hemisphere, and then an independent economy. They had the Moorish Guide, which was a newspaper, which still is going today, the Moorish Manufacturing Company, and stores and businesses in major cities. That's number 1, and they have it. We have it. Why am I saying they? That's us, even if you don't recognize it. So, number 2, there must be an organized government exercising control over and endeavoring to maintain justice within the territory. Moorish Divine and National Movement has executive rulers. They represent the governing body of officers within the Moorish Divine National Movement. They represent the Grand Sheiks, governors, grand governors within this Islamic nation state. The Holy Prophet made note of them within the questionnaire and several public speeches and articles that appear within the Moorish Guide and Chicago Defender newspaper. So, this is why it's good to be in there. You need to get used to seeing this and reading the divine constitution and bylaws at every meeting, and being upstanding and being, a ruler, someone who creates instead of being ruled over. If you're not able and capable of doing these things, you will constantly be marching and crying out for justice because you're not a ruler. You don't make laws and do things for yourself. Okay? So if you're cool with that stuff, then keep being sloppy. But if you're upstanding, then that you got to pull it together at least sometimes and get out there and make laws and enforce them and be serious. Okay? So we have that already within the temple. Now, 3, there must be a fixed territory which the inhabitants occupy. Nomadic tribes or people are thus excluded from consideration. Chapter 47, 6-7 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and habitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even to the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. This notes our dominion and habitation, which is found within the ancient records. A source of reference, see Moorish Empire by Budget Meakin. Now, I was speaking on this earlier. He describes our dominion. He says that our ancestors came over here to North, South, Central America before the great earthquake which caused the Atlantic Ocean. So he's saying that we were here even before, Atlantis sunk, before the continent split apart, right? And this is what he's saying. And this is actually hidden knowledge. There's actually you have accounts, in several books. There's a book that I have on my bookshelf called African Americans Were the First Americans. This says it has documented evidence of our people being over here 50,000 years ago. And all this is lining up. I mean, this stuff will continue to come out and be revealed and exposed, but all this is lining up with what we were taught by somebody back in the early 1900s, our prophet. Now, number 4 requisite for a state of international law: there must be capacity to enter into relations with the outside world. So you got to be able to trade and handle foreign affairs. The management of foreign affairs may, however, be logged in an appropriate quarter, or even confined to a state that is other than and foreign to the country that professes to be one. So it's saying even if you got to go outside of your land, or if you're in a country, another country, all right, as long as you're able to do relations with the outside world, you're good. You still have your own independent state. So in Havana, Cuba, 1928, the prophet went and declared this. Independence is not essential. Look, if you are a people and you are self-aware and you're declaring that you're a nation and you're doing these things that you are supposed to do as a nation, you are a nation. That's why this is saying the will within a will. And in the word, the existence of statehood is not dependent upon the possession by a country of the right to maintain contracts with others through agencies of their own choice or within its own control, or exercising their functions from a place within its own territory. The requisite personality in an international sense is seen when the entity claiming to be a state has in fact its own distinctive association with the members of the international society is by treaties. So if you're waking up and you're realizing, look, we've been colonized, but we know who we are and we are organized and we are ready. We're doing our thing just like we're supposed to. We're governing ourselves. You're going to have to back off and leave them alone. That's how it works. That they just declared who they are, whether you want to recognize it or not. Now, this is showing that we've already done all those things. And then what does it say? 5. The inhabitants of that territory must have attained a degree of civilization such as to enable them to observe with respect to the outside world those principles of law which are deemed to govern the members of the international society in their relations with each other. So, keys 17 through 18, Islamism. Our religious creed is known around the world, and the nations of the earth know how we are to function and govern ourselves. So being black, they don't know what to expect. Being African American, they don't know what to expect. They see, like one of the things you don't know unless you travel outside the country, a lot of the stuff that gets promoted by America is showing us in an unfavorable light. Especially the rap music. Like, they're showing us, balling, we throwing money around, but we're on some criminal, low-level behavior. And, we're about getting drunk and high. We're about everything corrupt and messed up that everyone else is doing. We're cool with it. We're good with it. We don't respect our women. Our women don't respect us. We're violent. We commit crimes. We down for whatever. And now, savage. Everybody calling themselves savage, and they... it's sad because they buying into their own self-destruction and don't even know it. They think they being cool or something. It's like, fool, they will give you a platform just so that you can go out here and destroy yourself. You're selling the savage stuff. It's not just about making this look cool to our own use, so they're getting caught up in it. That's one part of it, but they're killing 2 birds with 1 stone because this is what they pump around the world. So they see all these dumb young niggas call themselves savages, and this is getting pumped to the world. So they see us being savage and being proud like it's a badge of honor when we're supposed to be able to have attained a degree of civilization that people already know what to expect when they're dealing with us. Okay, so it's blacks, it's African Americans, they don't know what to expect because you being savage and you think being savage is cool. You twerking, you doing all this stupid mess, And so, okay, being a Moor, being Muslim, Islam, it lets you know how we govern ourselves. Right off bat, they know what to expect, or at least they think they do, okay? Our religious creed serves a function of civilizing us as a people through its divine principles. A principle is a fundamental law that controls conduct. The European stated in its Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator. We all have different gods, and we all don't see God the same way. Our God is Allah, and within Surah 49:13 it confirms this. So, if we are Moors, we can do all this. And number 5, that last one, yes, that lets people know that we've attained the degree of civilization of Moors. Yes, they know what to expect, and they know to respect us and how we carry ourselves. Right? So, we have completed all the requisites to be recognized as a state by international law. We are our own nation state. The Moorish Science Temple of America and the Vatican are the only 2 exceptions known in the world that qualify as being nation states and recognized internationally. That's what we have. Okay, so you don't tackle this stuff. You don't go against all this. All right? The Moorish Americans are citizens of their own nation and not the Europeans here within the Americas as found on our nationality and identification card, right? Because on there it says, I am a citizen of the USA, right? But in here, in this example of case law from 1945 U.S. Supreme Court case, they give 3 definitions of the term United States. The Supreme Court said that it may merely be the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. 2, it may designate the territory over which the sovereignty of the United States extends. 3, or it may be the collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. Now that's what they tell you it means, that it's all these 50 states. That's the United States. But this is saying several other things. Okay, and if you actually understand what's really going on, you know that the United States is really only like what, 40-mile, 50-mile radius? What is it? It's Washington D.C. and that's it, right? So in 1928, the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali made us a sovereign nation analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations, and this took place in Havana, Cuba. You know, he established like, okay, yeah, we're Moors. Boom, everybody automatically knows, oh, they're Muslims. They're this, and that. So they're civilized. So you can't be like, especially in the hometown, I mean, of the, you know, the headquarters of the Moorish Science Temple. You can't be there claiming, oh, we savage and being proud of that. That's sacrilegious, man. That's ignorant, right? You can't be 21 savage. You can't be savage, man. There's no pride in being savage. So what type of government is the MSTA of A? It's a theocratic Salic monarchy. There contains 3 branches of government. Allah represents the sovereign power, absolute ruler. So Noble Drew Ali stated, it is the great God Allah alone that makes the destiny of this divine and national movement. Chapter 35, Religion verses 1 and 10, there is but one Allah, the author, the creator, governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. He hath instituted laws for the government of the world. He hath wonderfully varied them in all beings, and each by his nature conformeth to his will. The MSTA Divine Constitution and Bylaws Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So executive is Grand Sheik and Chairman. Legislative is Grand Body plus Prophet, which is the works, words, and deeds. Judicial is the Supreme Grand Council, comes out of the Grand Body. We have 3 branches of government. The Grand Sheik and Chairman represents the Caliphate, right? So, This is just showing that there's already a nation set up. We have everything. We just need to work together. People who are already on this need to throw aside the little differences. Shouldn't even be any differences anymore at this point in time after everything that people have been through. Okay, and you know that this, running around being whatever label they place on you, which isn't recognized by anyone, and it definitely doesn't satisfy one of the prerequisites, which is knowing, like having a culture, being civilized. Other nations know off tops that you're civilized and can conduct yourself. They have an idea of who they're dealing with, but you don't have a system, and then especially if you're up under Christianity, because you're still colonized. People are kicking their colonizers out, right? Isn't that what they're doing in South Africa? So as Moorish American Muslims, we are not identifying with an Arabized version of Islam. We are adhering to the form of Islam that was perfected during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? So we don't exactly need the old Orthodox model anymore. The Caliphate was being replaced by the modern secular nation state, an institution considered to be a part of the religion of Islam was being replaced under the impact of Western political thought and civilization. So they'll act like they were trying to modernize it, okay, but they're really just trying to tear it down. But a political system which belonged to the Western world, and the terminology used in the old Orthodox model was now being used in a new sense to fit the new model. Okay? So, Moorish Americans, what is our religion? Islamism. Is that new or is it the old-time religion? And the answer is old-time religion. Islamism, defined on our corporate website, states Islamism. In Arabic, it's called Al-Islamiyya. It is a set of ideologies holding that Islam is not only a religion but also a political system, such that modern Muslims must return to the creed, principles, and roots of the religion of their ancient forefathers and unite socially, economically, and politically to establish uniting among the nations of the human family. Chapter 48:8, verse 8. While we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. The old-time religion encompasses the ability to govern oneself by divine principles, not the secularized religious creed that is mostly dogmatic. So we go off the divine principles. What is that? Love, peace, truth, freedom, justice, right? Okay? We're not confined to the, just religious creed, secular, religious creed. So, and then we can recognize other people who live off the divine principles no matter what they call themselves. It's like, okay, well, to me, you're a Muslim too. And that's why it doesn't matter if you're a Hebrew Israelite or whatever you call yourself. Even if you consider yourself Christian, doesn't matter. If you really live by love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice, you're a Muslim and you're with us. Especially if you're an Asiatic. Okay, so that's pretty much it now. Yeah, take it easy. About to go to sleep. Peace.
Get one of these Fez caps. Got the tassel on it. Got the universe under the brim. Raising awareness about the Moors. Letting the world know who you are. Everybody's not always wearing their Fez when they go out, but you could always represent no matter what. You know what I'm saying? So